What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Performance. We're joined today with Liz Faircloth. How's it going?
Great, doing great. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, love having you on, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your journey. Love if you kind of introduced yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name's Liz Faircloth. I have been a real estate investor slash entrepreneur for probably about 20 years now. Got our start. I was actually getting in school to become a social worker. I wanted to actually open my own practice, if you will, my own therapy
Yeah,
practice, and decided not to do that actually, and ended up kind of starting my path in buying property, buying investment property with my then boyfriend, now husband, and began with a duplex. And we've grown our portfolio over the last 2 decades to a couple thousand units of mostly large multifamily with a lot of investors, and that's how we buy larger
yeah,
properties. So, got involved in a lot of different aspects of investing, and worked through '08 and worked through a lot of different markets and timing of the market and all those sort of things, but really got our niche in large multifamily and like value add properties. And we do a lot of like new construction now. So that's a little bit about my real estate, experience entrepreneur. And I also started a business focused on serving women in this space of real estate investing. And about 8 years
excellent.
ago, my partner and I got together, a friend and now business partner got together and said, we go to conferences, we go to events. We always felt like we're the only women there. And we both
Yeah,
kind of had this shared passion of serving women in the space of investing. So we have a community called InvestHER, and it's a platform online, offline,
yeah.
to bring women together, to really give them the tools, the knowledge, the skills, the support to invest in real estate and build their wealth. So have
Love it.
started different businesses and growing different businesses. So that's just a little about me and what I'm involved in.
I love it. Now, going from social work to real estate investing, very natural fit.
Yeah, totally natural, like totally linear. Bless you.
Yeah. How did your background shape your approach? Because most people don't go from social work to that,
Sure.
but I find it probably benefited you very well. So tell
Yeah.
me how that shaped your background into entrepreneurship.
Well, it's funny because I went, first off, I went straight on. I was very focused, right? So usually
Yeah.
when you go get your graduate degree, most people go and get some experience in the work setting and what have you. I just went straight on. So I actually never worked in social
Okay.
work. So had I done that, I would have maybe made some different decisions. But my heart and my passion was always in helping people. Long story short, when I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I was getting my classes, and the School of Social Work is this small little building compared to right next to it is the School of Wharton, which Wharton is like the
Mm-hmm.
number one business school in the world, right?
Yep.
So right
Yep.
next to School of Social Work, which I don't know if the windows were a little wonky and the building was old, was this gorgeous building of business. So when I was there, I actually fought for the right to take a class at Wharton, and I took a class on entrepreneurship. So I had something in me. In terms of reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I started reading a lot of personal growth books. At the same time, I was like learning about social work. I'm like, maybe there's something here where I can join my passion of helping people, but also doing it in a way that starts a business and adds value. And so I
Yeah.
took this course. I had to fight for this course because they did not want, they were like, hold on, you're in the School of Social Work. They couldn't get their head around allowing me
Yeah.
to do this. But
Why would you have the audacity to even ask?
I know, right? I'm like, I'm paying a lot of money to be here. I
Yeah.
could go take a, and so that experience, I actually I wrote a business plan for building a women's center, a center dedicated to women. At the time, it was going to be focused on mental illness and supporting women through that, because that's the experience I had. So
Yeah.
20 years ago, right? 25 years ago, arguably, I had this little seed to serve women, and then it kind of came full circle, which is sort of interesting. And I put it on the shelf, and my sister reminded me. She's like, "You've always been passionate about serving women." I'm like, "I don't remember." Then she reminds me of this. I'm like, "Oh yeah,
She's like, remember these 20 different things that you did all growing
yeah."
up? Let me remind you of that.
But we
Now,
all
real
need those
estate. Oh,
reminders,
for
right?
sure. For sure. We like
Yeah,
those are things that make us us.
yeah,
And, it's the history in us that, you know, helps shape the person we're meant to be.
yeah, absolutely.
So now you mentioned earlier, you didn't quite say it, but real estate is a little bit of a boys' club sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, is there a pivotal moment that inspired you to create your community specifically for women in real estate?
There was little moments over the time I was investing, right? So there'd be moments of people, I'd be reaching out to someone and, a broker, because I was definitely always on the side of building
Yeah,
relationships, finding deals, and then we would underwrite them, and we were building a
yeah,
team over the years. Property management, I dealt with a lot of our tenants, a lot of our investors. Anyway,
yeah,
during certain conversations, different moments, I'd have bankers say, have you spoken to your husband about this? I had comments over the years, just small comments. I'm like, well, I'm actually the one that has the better credit score, and
yeah,
I'm probably the one personally guaranteeing this. So I'm not sure why I need my husband involved. So there was moments of that. I wasn't as close to the construction. My husband was actually more in our leading those pieces. I'm sure I would have gotten more of it. And my friend now and business partner Andressa got a lot of that because she led construction for her
yeah,
deals. But we went to a conference together, and we had all the women there sit together, and it was like 10 of us. And it was in a room of like 300 people. And I felt sad by that. I was almost like, all the women are congregating, and it's just, okay, that's great. And we had community, but we were in this huge room of mostly men, and we felt like we were the only women there.
yeah,
And so that was a moment of, okay, I don't think we're the only women, but clearly there's a piece here that might be a need for women, a community for women to give them the
yeah.
support they may need. So it was like this visual of like two tables put together in this enormous room when people are having lunch, and you're like, wow, this
Hmm.
is really interesting about the discrepancies, if you will, in terms of numbers.
Yeah, clearly there's a need there, and you've proved it with the investor movement going on. And what's been the most rewarding aspect of doing that, building that community?
Oh, there's been a lot of different moments. Women have become financially free as
Yeah,
a result of connecting with each other. Some women have bought that next property so they can take care of their special needs children. And so they, child that might need, they're like, I'm looking forward 20 years and I want to create a stream of income for him. So he's not so reliant on other ways, and certainly will have a job and all those sort of things. So it's been like moments of women's story sharing. There was one particular meetup leader that she led. She was one of our first meetup leaders. And I don't want to cry sharing this, but it's probably one of my most, like when I
you're
have tough
just fine.
days.
We'll cry together.
Yeah,
We'll
like when I have
cry
tough days,
together.
I think about her, and it gives me the
Yeah,
motivation to continue because, business is not all roses and sunshine.
no,
It just isn't. So there was a woman, her name is Rita, and she was a single mom, and she really developed a portfolio of about 20 single family homes, and she rented them all to Section 8 women in the Florida
okay,
area. And she
yeah,
came forward as one of our first meetup leaders. So we have meetups across the country of women, circles of women coming together, supporting each other in a geographical area. She was one of our first meetup leaders, and just was one of like the best meetup leaders. Like she was always so engaged and connected and doing so much for the women in her group. And then her daughter got to an age where she started to teach her how to do the same. So it's just a really cool legacy story. And she's always wanted to give back. And she really, honestly, even her portfolio strengthened as a result of being involved in our community, just because she was like, okay, I can sell this, I can do that. She just really got strategic. Anyway,
yeah,
we didn't hear from her. It was really odd to not hear from her. And she shared, I said, Rita, is everything okay? It's not like you to not respond if you're coming to our conference. She goes, actually, I have stage 4 cancer. And it's just been really hard. But I honestly, I have to step back. I'm like, well, of course you have to step back from being a leader,
yeah,
no problem. But she goes, please continue what you're doing, no matter what, because for so many women, it's not just building wealth. It could be like life or death, right? It could be this portfolio allowed her to break away, from a relationship that wasn't serving her. It was the ability for her to create a life for her kids and actually have freedom and enjoyment, and not just put her head down and work, so hard, as I think she was a
yeah.
registered nurse. So I just saw the impact of real estate having in her life and her ability to teach and share in our community. And then she passed away right before our conference, unfortunately. But I always we give out an award at our conference called the Rita, the Rita Award, if you will, for somebody who's
Yeah.
embodying what she embodied, because it's about that. It's about really giving back and taking steps forward to create a life, not just for yourself, but a legacy. And really what this woman represented. So there's a lot of different stories and neat people that I've gotten a chance to serve in our community, but her story always resonates most with me, just because she went through so much and created the generational
Yeah.
wealth for her family.
Yeah. Now, when is your conference every single year?
It's always in June. We rotate locations. Next 2025 will be in Orlando. It's called InvestHER Con. It's 500 people come together, all women, companies that are
Yeah.
supporting women in the business. It's a really very empowering and uplifting. It's like feels like a big retreat because it's
Yeah.
very transformational. It's not just transactional sessions. So yeah, it happens every June.
What's been your biggest takeaway from the conference? It sounds like you've been doing this for a while. What is your biggest takeaway from the conference?
We do a session. I think what's really important is that we represent what we always like to talk about is like peeling back the onion, meaning some women might need the strategic, tactical. How do I buy
Yeah.
an investment property? But
Yeah.
that doesn't hold people back. I mean, you can Google it. It's not
Yeah.
rocket science. Even you can creatively get creative. Even in today's time, there's deals out there. That's not what
Yes.
stops people. It's the mental game that stops people typically. So we do this session called like our mastermind session, if you will, and we have women come on the stage, and we basically say, "What's your biggest challenge?" So let's talk about it. And it's not that we're therapists, but we really go deep because that's our job, right? People are not there just to learn the knowledge; they're there to create transformation for themselves. So a couple of years ago, a woman had about 10 properties, which was great. This is her
Yeah.
full-time
It's
gig.
great.
She was killing herself though, right? So she was all of her energy, time. We always say we're entrepreneurs, but this one was a solopreneur and literally killing herself, kind of like a
Yeah.
slave to her business that she so wanted to create. And so we said, shut your eyes. And she goes, what are you going to do to me? And we said, just shut your eyes. And we did like a visualization with her of like what she wanted life to look like. What did that kind of North Star look like? And she goes, this is hard for me because I haven't been able to step into that. We're like, stop. So we did this visualization with her, and she reached out to us, and she ended up joining our mentorship program. So we got a chance to get to know her. And she,
Mhm.
a couple of months later, she said, I took that trip that I visualized on your stage, and now I'm able to create the time and have the space to actually live this life that I've always wanted to live versus being a slave to it. So that was cool to like something we did during the conference that actually happened and for that
Yeah.
person. And so that was
Oh,
neat.
I
But
love it.
little moments
Yeah.
like that are really special, that this isn't just talking to people and hopefully they get something. Like, how do we really create individual transformation? That's not the easiest thing, right?
Yeah.
Because some people might
No.
check out, but
No, I mean balancing entrepreneurship and life can be challenging. I mean, those two are challenging. When you add a family,
yeah.
it adds even more of a dynamic. How have you managed that?
Yeah, and that's been a journey for me. I think I continually get better. That's my simple answer. I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing that I think it comes down to priorities, right? If people are like, if they literally have an equal weight of 10 friends and they say all these 10 friends are the same equal priority, if one of them reaches out or three of them reach out, you're beholden. You're not sure who to go get back to because they actually have all equal weighting. So for me, as just a metaphor, I really prioritize not just my relationships, but the buckets of my life, right? So my family, my
Yeah.
kids, my husband, even certain friendships, right? Even certain doing service in my life. Not easy to do that as someone who's a mom and has a million things going on. So I think the priorities, and I always say my children come first. I mean,
Yeah.
yesterday I had to take my son an hour away to an appointment. He's figuring things out with his chest, and he has chest pains. And I have so much going on. I was away. I'm going away again, right? So I have like my to-do list is so long. But in my
Yeah.
head, to like let myself go of the guilt because I felt. I mean, no one's like, "Where are you, Liz?" But I feel guilty, right?
Yeah.
I said, "Where are my priorities?" Oh, that's right, my son. And I don't have to like moron, but I just want to remind myself, that's right, my kids are my priority. Over the weekend, I could be doing so many things in the business, and I really value my family and my kids. So that's how I do it. Is I really say, okay, what are my true priorities, and really rank them. So when you're given that choice of, okay, what should I do, or should I make this decision, you kind of have like this guide, if you will, If not, you're beholden to everyone. I think boundaries has been something I've learned. I don't think I've
Yeah.
always been great at
Boundaries
boundaries.
is hard as an
So,
entrepreneur. I
yeah,
work way too much.
absolutely. And so my kids, tonight I know I sit with them and do homework. I do this, I do that. Um, it doesn't mean I won't do anything. I won't like touch my email in like 8 hours, but I'm
Yep.
mindful. I'm mindful of it.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the importance of making money and making a difference. Can you share specific examples? Have you seen this play out in your real estate ventures?
Yeah. So when my husband and I got started, we said, okay, what should we focus on? What market should we focus on? And so we chose Trenton, New Jersey, which for those who are listening are not familiar, it's the capital of obviously New Jersey. I'm a true and true Jersey girl, born and raised, and Trenton has been an urban community, urban city for obviously forever. It had its heyday in the 50s, and then population, jobs, everything has been declining since then. When we got started about 20 years ago, and we started investing in Trenton about 15 years ago, we had this like hope for the city because there's so many dilapidated properties. So in our eyes, we're like, there's so much opportunity here. We can make a difference, and
Yep.
we can make money through our rental properties, and so that was the vision we embarked on. Obviously, our market analysis has gotten more in depth since our beginnings, if you will, because analyzing a market is a whole different level than when we started. However, I'll say that we really wanted to, and we continue to say, okay, how can we make a difference, not just in the property, but in the community? And there's ways to do that. I always, and at that time, we really took, oh my gosh, must have been like 40 plus properties, and they were all dilapidated, not creating any value for anyone. And we created quality housing. We even
Yeah.
converted a vacant building to a small business center. I feel like we did a lot of good work in Trenton.
Yeah.
Is Trenton the same Trenton as when we began? Yes. So we actually sold a lot of our properties just because, we were looking at our future and said, okay, do we want to be Trenton landlords in 5 to 10
Yeah.
years? And we had to think through that strategy. But I think we could ask the question, okay, how do we make money and make a difference? I don't know I don't know how to do one or the other because I've always been involved in things I've been passionate about. I think people like to separate them, and I don't see how you can separate them. If you're really making money, you're adding value to somebody. You're solving some
Yeah.
problem. I mean, honestly. So
Yeah.
I don't know how the two get separated, to be honest.
Yeah. Now, you speak about change and evolution. What's going on with the real estate market right now? How has it evolved in the past like 5 years, and where's it headed? I want to
Yeah,
hear your predictions.
my
I want to
predictions,
hear
right?
your wave
I
your
don't
wand
I
as
don't have the
well.
crystal ball, right? I didn't find that
No,
today,
no.
but I think here's what I think. COVID obviously was some. I mean, if you were going to buy property in the last several years, buying property in the midst of COVID was some of the best in terms of the best times.
Yes.
I mean, we bought a 300 unit building in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is kind of a sub market of like the Raleigh, the Durham, in the North Carolina area. And
Yeah.
we bought it at such a discount, like an incredible discount in hindsight. And at the time, you don't realize that, wow, this is like great. So that was something we're very, we were happy about, but we're like, okay, I wish we had 5 of those at the time. So here's what I think. I'm a multifamily investor. And so what's happening and what's been happening in the last 5 years, multifamily is still overpriced. So since the COVID kind of like, since I'm just going to use that as a earmark for 5 years, things are still overpriced. People still want a certain number for their property. There's a ton of
Yeah.
deferred maintenance on a lot of these buildings, and people are overpaying. And with then you put in interest rates and being able to make the numbers work as you did, say, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. It's all, that's the question mark. So what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of opportunity in new construction. No,
Yeah.
I mean, all things considered, I'm not saying people aren't still buying multifamily properties. However, I'm going to speak just from my expertise of what I'm seeing is that you got to make sure your numbers are right, and you got to make sure you're getting something that's distressed. There's a distressed
Mhm.
situation happening, which is always the name of the game in our business, but
Correct.
it's become even more important just because everything else that's up against you. So what I'm seeing, and really where there's a lot of opportunity is, there's a housing shortage across the country, right? And so people still need affordable housing, not like government subsidy affordable housing. Yes,
Yeah.
that's true for certain people, but just to be able to afford where they want to live, especially in more
They need a
luxury,
place to live.
desirable areas,
Yeah.
safe areas, good school district. And so we're actually involved in about 4 projects that are new construction projects, smaller new construction, not like what we used to buy in terms of like large multi, but 30 unit ish
Yeah.
type of projects. And so we're partnering with towns. So we're getting incentives. We're, creating, it's usually mixed use. Some of it's mixed use. So you're creating some jobs, you're creating some incentives there for the first level. And then you're creating apartments and places for people to live, walkable towns that people want to live in. That's something that we're kind of currently looking at and working on in the markets that, obviously we want to grow with. We really like the Southeast. We're actually doing a project in Minnesota, our first project in Minnesota,
Yeah.
because we have a local partner. So, but I think as long as people are on the side of solving like housing challenges and kind of community challenges, if you will, in areas that people want to live, is there job growth? Are people coming here? Do people want to live here? And then what type of
Yeah.
housing is needed here? I think you're always going to be on the side of kind of solutions. I've heard people doing very well with, developments that include sustainability and include these tiny homes. People don't need these huge homes. They need
Yeah.
places where they can just kind of pop in, pop out, depending on the generation that you're trying to market to, who your customer is. So a lot of opportunity. I think it's a different world and landscape than when I started. We were just like, okay, get a long-term tenant and go like this with your hands and you're good to go for many years. That's not necessarily the case now. You got to get a little more creative. People are doing very well with student housing. People are doing very well with taking an asset and cutting it up into like rooms, room by room, which is pretty much student housing. So just more creativity today in niches. But I think as long as you're on the side of creating housing for the customer you're looking to serve, and jobs are going up and people want to live there, usually you're going to usually bet right.
Yeah. Now, a topic that as you're, building out all these units and buying and acquiring, what is going on with insurance right now?
I know, right? That's a great question.
Most people aren't talking about this, but I am looking at deals.
Yeah.
And every single one of my buildings, my units, I mean, we own a lot as well, and insurance has legitimately doubled on every project we have over the past like 3 years, and it is killing some of my deals that were amazing deals to when we bought them, but they're hurting them. They're hurting the profitability of that.
I'm curious,
what
markets are they in?
Oh, I'm all over the place. I'm Midwest, I'm North Carolina, I'm Utah, California. Yeah,
that it's a challenge. There's no question. We are. I mean, look at the people in Florida, right? I was talking to an investor, and he's got like 100 units. He's just like, these were great assets at one point.
Nobody will insure it.
Yeah.
Nobody will insure it.
Yeah. So here's what I think. I think that if you have current properties, like you're saying, current deals, definitely, I think there's insurance companies that want to work with investment properties. And I think there are insurance companies that do not. So I don't think they're all created equal, just like banks. It's like saying, I can't find the right lender. Well, some people are talking to like the Bank of America's, no offense to Bank of America or the big banks, but I have not gotten great terms from those kinds of banks. I've always the local banks. So I would say, because we work with a lot of different insurance companies because of our community, and these are like sponsors of ours. Some of them are so landlord friendly. However, to your point, insurance is insurance. There's certain things they don't have any control over. I think from a strategic point of view, I've been recommending to people when you're about to buy a property and they're telling you, okay, and you're running your numbers on a certain insurance rate, I would definitely go to an insurance carrier that you want to work with and get a quote before you even lock the property up. Because
we're doing that now. Like every property we look at, I mean, we had one
no-brainer
that we were looking at. It was a 55 unit very recently, and insurance was 60,000 for the year, and they're like, oh, we're selling it for this, and like they had like 6 different reasons, and one of them was insurance. And we went and we're trying to get it quoted, and like, I mean, we were like 3 times whatever they could get, and that was quoting out through like 10 different companies and trying, and it was,
Wow.
it was, it made the deal not happen.
Yeah. And that's
So
where I think the depending on, and I was talking to an insurance company at a conference last week. I said, it'd be great to give content is where the areas, there's always something happening in the United States of a different reason, like wildfires to floods to hurricanes, right? Every area has a different kind of demographic. But I said, it'd be really interesting to rank them, especially from like an insurance rate perspective for investors. And
yes.
I don't know, I think that would be a cool tool for us to have, right? Because then we're starting to look in the markets that are going to be more stable from a weather perspective, right? Because the weather is the piece that's the uncontrollable.
Yeah. Or I like what we're on to. We're going to call it insure her. I like that. I like that.
All right. I got a new business.
That could be good. That could be good. Now, couple more questions.
Yeah.
Only women in the room. Give me your number one piece of advice from your book.
So I wrote a chapter on scaling, and I think somewhere in that chapter I spoke about second guessing yourself and how in order to scale, you really need to stop doing that. And so I think so many women, especially so many women, they don't know what the fair and equitable rate is if they're negotiating something, and they need to, and they need to ask for what they want and need and know that their worth is high. So I think that's just something I spoke to in the chapter I had, and you kind of weave through a lot of the women's stories, but there's no handouts, right? And, you got to know what, and meaning you need to know what the fair and equitable amount is of something, whether you're negotiating a deal or an equity or a fee, or whatever it is, and then ask for it and stand by your guns because your worth is there. So that's something that I think I spoke to a bit in mine and other women did, but I think it's something we always need reminders about, to not underworth ourselves, if that's a term.
So many of us don't know our true worth and undercut ourselves left and right. Well, thank you so much for your time, for being here, Liz. You've been amazing. Before we leave, we want to help you as well. What is your biggest struggle right now, and how can we help?
Biggest struggle in general,
whatever.
Whatever.
It's a general question.
I think not a struggle, but it's a struggle / opportunity. Is where there's a lot of noise out there of different groups and places to get support. And so we're always like, okay, how do we get in front of more women, right? And really serving them, not just women who are investing currently in real estate, but it might be that busy professional who is looking for some resources and support. We're just trying to really fulfill the mission that every woman has that birthright to become financially free. So for us, we're just like, okay, how do we get in front of more women? And so we can serve them, help them, genuinely help them, authentically help them, whether they purchase something with us or not. They're at least connected to a community that cares about them, even though I don't know who they are, right? So that's always my kind of focus, like intention / potentially struggle. So
yeah, I love it. I mean, that's a good struggle to have. Helping people will always lead you in a good direction. So thank you so much for everything you do, Liz. Thanks for being a guest today, and appreciate everyone who watched / listened to this.
Yeah, absolutely.